Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee on the 3rd of September. It's Tuesday, 9:20 in the morning. Our high is going to be 90 today, which is, for us here in Israel, it's easy for us to get along at 90, believe me. So I'm grateful for that the weather's finally declining, and I'm hoping we don't get an early winter. Well, I'd really love to see a nice 10-week fall. The days are getting shorter here, but that's okay. Um, what we're going to cover today is there's some changes in the Middle East with Saudi Arabia, particularly, and China, that is going to really seriously affect America's decisions on how they deal with the Middle East. And I'll have to develop this when we're in life, when we get going, but I believe that America's going to have to put their foot on the gas. Saudi Arabia weeks ago said they're no longer selling oil for US dollars or euros. Now, they're a huge oil producer, and this reduces the demand for the US dollar, and this weakens the dollar. And there's been other moves with Russia and China, BRICS, and so forth. Now, if Saudi Arabia did it, the UAE is going to do it because they're like blood brothers and they do everything together. And other countries might. And Jordan is now talking to Iran. So America, with its you know diminished capacity president, has scared the Middle Eastern states seriously about being in the camp of America. Okay? They're very scared. It doesn't have much to do with Israel with them. It's about money and war, not from Israel. But, they're afraid of Iran. And they're running over to Iran because they don't feel America will protect them. They see how America protects Israel. They see what happened in Afghanistan a few years ago. They see America with Taiwan and South Korea. And they, being of the Middle East mindset, which the West doesn't understand. If you don't live in the Middle East, it's hard to understand. Not impossible, just hard. And they see America as just presenting deterrence and not delivering. And deterrence without delivering, you can get away with it once or twice, but America, that's the story of their life, and it's just not working anymore. And they're afraid of America as an ally. So they're switching camps. And the camp they're going to is trying to bust out America and the EU economically because of what the EU and America did to them with sanctions. And their plans are rather scary. And this is, in a short period of time, going to diminish the value of the US dollar significantly. We're talking maybe 20, 30, 40%. And that's going to cripple the economy in America. People aren't going to be able to live the way they used to live. Car payment defaults, mortgage defaults, credit card defaults, bankruptcies, businesses folding. We'll get into all this. It's very serious. Gold prices are not moving much. They pushed it again under 2,500 slightly, and silver's 28, 29. So they're keeping the price of the precious metals from climbing, but there's a limit to that. Believe me, there's a limit to that. And the banking crisis that you hear them talk about is going to happen. It's not going to be like what the guys selling prepper supplies tell you, because they'll just get rid of the small banks, bail them out, and merge them into the bigger banks and create more monopolies in banking and stuff like this. But they're not going to go and admit, well, our inflation is now 30% a year. America will never admit that. They're not going to up welfare payments, retirements, and see, inflation robs the people. Okay? America was on a gold standard that they got off of around 1935. Now that was good, but America couldn't accomplish what it wanted to, and that plan was to just make phony, bogus money and mint it like crazy or print it like crazy and build up a weapons empire and a big military and dominate the world, and then force them to accept the worthless US dollar and stay in power and keep building airplanes that cost, $50, $100 million, build ships that cost billions, and dominate the world. But that's not happening anymore. They broke China. China's in a real estate crisis now. People can't make the payments. Real estate companies are going bankrupt in China. If you watch for videos in Russia, not from governments or political analysts or any of that nonsense, people that, they're YouTubers or TikTokers or Twitter or whatever in Russia, and they talk about how difficult it is with sanctions. But I've seen videos of these people go through the stores, okay, and show you the prices in the supermarket, and they're not high by Israel or America's standards. They're quite good. But what the people say is they can't get money into Russia. So what does that mean? If you work for, Vladivostok Artillery Company or something like that, and you're paid in Russian rubles, you're fine. And you can go to the store and buy what you want, right? But if you are trying to get money by exporting out of Russia, it's horrible. They can't get their money into Russia. So they could use maybe a cryptocurrency and trade it, for things online, or they could possibly get a bank account in another country and get a credit card from them that won't work in the ATM machines in Russia, but they could buy things online and have it shipped to Russia, and that makes things very expensive because they have to pay for the shipping, and they have to pay, I'm sure, an import tax. Pretty sure. I'm almost positive. So the regular person that works in an office or a business or a plant, gets their paycheck in rubles, and they go to the store and they pay the rent and they buy gas for the car and all that. But the people that own the companies that are trying to sell things abroad are in dire straits. Okay? And I'm sure China's getting that way too. Now, we can order things from AliExpress in Israel, and that's a whole other story. With AliExpress, you're rolling the dice and you're not sure what you're going to get. My wife's been nagging me about replacing this massage chair, which the motor broke 6-7 years ago, but it's a comfortable chair and it was well built in another country, and I just use it as a chair. I really miss my massage chair. So they're reasonably priced in China, and they'll ship them here and everything, but here's the problem. The chair comes, right? You plug it in and it doesn't work, or it works for a week and then it dies. How do you get a refund? Good luck with that. I don't know how you would. I don't know. I bought other things there, like some red light panels, which are very inexpensive, and they do seem to work, but I don't know if the stated power on them is correct. You see, what they're very deceitful. With these red light panels, they say that they install an LED chip, either 3 watts or 5 watts. Okay? But people, influencers and competitors that sell red light equipment have taken these spectrometers, which I understand cost $3,000 to $5,000 or more, and who's going to buy one of those, to test your equipment? And they tested it, and they find out that they installed a 5-watt chip, but so they're not lying. They say, oh, it has 65-watt chips in these wavelengths, and they're not lying about that. But what they don't tell you is to save pennies, they install weak power system inside the panel, and it doesn't emit the full 5 watts. It emits like 1 or 1.5 watts, which means you just have to use the red light panel longer. But you see, they're really deceptive, and when they sell things, really deceptive. And you got to be very, very careful with Alibaba or AliExpress, and you'll see a lot of the companies are fly by night. They're there for a few months and then they're gone, probably because of refunds and other problems, chargebacks, and they just shut that corporation down and get a new. What does it cost to get a corporation in China? It might be $100, $300. They get a new corporation and they go on AliExpress. It's near impossible to communicate with anybody at AliExpress. You can get some satisfaction if you use PayPal, but PayPal puts you through the ringer. It's almost a full-time job, but you will prevail in the long run if you don't mind putting 6 or 10 hours into it spread out over 2 months. You probably will prevail. Or if you've got a good bank with the credit card and they want to fight against it, you'll probably prevail, but they'll fight you back. So it's a tough thing. So anyway, the bloggers and the social media people in Russia are really in dire straits, so they can't get their money. What they might have to do is set up a foreign bank account online, which I think a Russian person could do in another country, say in Europe, right? And then get a credit card or debit credit card, with Visa, MasterCard on it from that bank, sent to Russia, which probably would work. And they're not going to be able to pull the cash or use the card in Russia because of sanctions, but every now and then they could get on a bus or a train or a plane and fly into Europe and go to the ATM machine and, pull cash off the card as much as they can, which is usually limited to $1,000 or $2,000 a day. So if they stayed for 5 days, they could take a bunch of money out. And I don't know if they could convert dollars into rubles in Russia, probably in a black market, or they could probably go to a money changer in that country and convert it to rubles, or go to I don't know. I mean, but it's not, they can probably do that. So if they took a trip every month or two, they could probably make it. Now I was watching the standard of living in Iran on videos. This guy takes you on a tour in Tehran and other places of Iran, running the camera the whole time. And you see the streets don't have a lot of traffic. It's not like Rome or New York or LA. They got cars moving, there's plenty of cars, but it's not bogged down. And they have a lot of expensive cars, and the guy explains the tax on a foreign car is like in Israel, 100%. But in Israel, it goes, if you buy a luxury car, it goes to 150%. So these people are running around in Iran with cars that cost them, he was pointing it out, $200,000. Well, not rubles or whatever the Iran uses currency, lira or whatever the heck it is. It's 200,000 US dollars. And there's a lot of this over there, and there's a lot of really nice restaurants. They happen to have a lot of nice food there. Doesn't look like the Israeli food at all. See, like I apologize to you, the Israelis are not eating Arab food per se that I could detect. A couple of dishes are Arab oriented, like shawarma, maybe falafel, and putting the meat on the skewers, but they've got their own Israeli food, which I can't enjoy it, you know. And the kosher food is not, the meats are not enjoyable because what they do, they kosher it, which is not in the Bible, it's not in the Torah. The animal is clean or unclean. They take the meat and under rabbinical supervision and whatever that means, and they kick them back. They got to pay the rabbis money to supervise them. So I think it puts at least 15% on the price of food. I think more likely 25 or 30%. Seriously. They wash the meat with a lot of water to make sure there's no traces of blood. What the Torah says, let the blood fall out on the floor. They don't tell you to go put the meat out in the sun for 2 days and dry it out, or turn it into jerky or something like that, or cook it, so well done it's dried out. They don't say that in the Torah, So then after they finish washing the meat, they put big pieces of salt in it, and they leave it there for hours to pull the water out. Now this is based on the salt covenant in the Torah. They don't wash the meat for the altar, but they do put the salt on it to make sure the blood's out. That's in the Bible. But that's for the food going to sacrifice on the altar, not, or offered on the altar, not for people to put in their house. Now, this, I believe, would contribute to high blood pressure. When I grew up in New York, I was in a 99.9% Jewish neighborhood, and there were tons of these in the Bronx and Queens and Brooklyn. And there was tremendous high blood pressure with the elderly, not so old people either. The women would be taking Lasix to get the water out. That's a medical drug. I'm no doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just giving you the things I observed, And I don't even know what Lasix's real name is or what it really does or the action or anything like that. They used to call it a water pill, so I don't know much about it. But that tends to ruin the meat, the flavor and the taste. Then if that's not enough, they do it a second time. Wash it again and then salt it again, and the meat tastes terrible. It's a cruel joke. And it puts money in their pockets. It's a terrible thing. It's not in the Bible, it's in the Talmud, which is not the Bible. So the food here, what we do is we try to buy our meats at the Arab markets, which we found out some of their meats that they import are kosher. Like Israel brings meat from Argentina, for instance, fish too. I think Brazil maybe, but Argentina, and the meat's koshered in Argentina, and then they freeze it and they ship it to Israel in probably containers, refrigerated containers. And it's reasonably priced, and the fish is pretty good, believe it or not. And the fish doesn't get kosher, They don't do it to the fish. Although some fish will have blood, but, that's how they are. See, they don't consider fish meat. They don't consider it that way. So when you go into a dairy restaurant in Israel, see, they don't mix the dairy and the meat based on you're not supposed to boil a baby animal in the mother's milk. It's just a disgusting thought to think people would do that. So they take that and they got the concept of building a wall around or a fence around the law. So they expand that and they say you can't mix meat and dairy because the milk is dairy according to them, and it is, I guess, and the meat would be eating the baby calf. So it's so stupid. I have no words for this. And so you have restaurants that are either meat or dairy. The dairy restaurant, you can order eggs, vegetables, cheese. No, wait a minute. Cheese, I don't know if you can get. In a dairy restaurant, yeah, you can. You can get cheese in a dairy restaurant. You can get milk, cream, ice cream, and fish. In a meat restaurant, if you want to order coffee and you want to put cream or milk in your coffee, you can't. You have to use non-dairy creamer. And they'll have all the fruits and the vegetables because that's not in this doctrine they created out of the thin air. You can get all the salads in the meat restaurant. You can get, I don't know, you can get peas, potatoes, asparagus, beans, whatever you want. They don't care. So the food here is particularly lousy. Okay. You got, some food that's Eastern European based. The Russians eat it, and it's very close to the food I grew up with. The Ashkenazis eat it. But in this neck of the woods, the Ashkenazis don't really live. So I can't get that. They're in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, which I don't travel to. I don't have any reason to go there, and it's usually 2.5 hour trip each way, and that ruins your whole day. And I'm not going to go there to eat lunch. I mean, it's pretty silly. So anyway, yeah. So we're going to discuss why America is going to attack Iran real soon. You'll see the pieces come together, and it has precious little to do with Israel. Israel's the provocation, along with the Iran increasing their nuclear material, uranium, whatever it is. Okay. And we're going to talk about what Russia's doing with China, what Iran is doing with China, and what Saudi Arabia is doing with China, and it's pretty scary for America. Okay. And they will respond. And don't kid yourself, America's at war with Russia through Ukraine. And NATO's at war with Russia through Ukraine. And Russia's in trouble. Okay? China's in trouble. Iran has economic difficulty. But the people in Iran, there's like a rich class over there. And they have apartments in downtown Tehran that look like they're, high-rise Miami or something like that. And they're millions of dollars. So a good question is, where the heck did they get this money from? I mean, there's a lot of people living as millionaires in Tehran. Where's this money coming from? You know what I'm saying? Expensive cars, like, what do they call them? Land Rover, Range Rover, SUVs that guys said are $200,000 in Iran. Stuff like that. So it's pretty unusual. They don't tell you that. Okay? Now it's a cruel, oppressive government, that's for sure. And a lot of people in Iran oppose this government and don't want Sharia law or anything like that, but they're, being oppressed by the Khomeini. And we're going to talk about what's going on in Israel with the ceasefire with Biden and Hamas and Hezbollah, and we'll cover the Houthis and I'll show you how all of these pieces are coming together. America has created a plot against Israel and Iran. And I'll spell it out for you as we go. So what I want to do now is go into the chat. And I want to make sure we got sound and picture. We're only going to hit 90 degrees today. That's wonderful. I'm really excited about that. I want to go in the chat and make sure we got sound and picture. And we're going to also cover the two witnesses. I'm going to show you what they don't teach you about the two witnesses. And I'm going to read it to you straight out of your Bible. Zechariah 4, Zechariah 12, Malachi 3 and 4. I'm going to read it to you right out of your Bible. And you're going to see the two witnesses don't appear in Revelation. They do, but that's like at the very end of their ministry. And their ministry really, the fullness of their ministry lines up with the second 70 years of Daniel 9:24, which I've taught this a million times. Daniel 9:24 does not say 70 weeks. In all the English translations, except one, Smith's literal translation, except for that, all the ones that I've looked at, which are dozens and dozens, say 70 weeks. No, it's the same exact word twice. The word that they represent as it's Shavim, as 70, then they change the same exact word to weeks. It's not. It's two 70s. The first 70 is the 70-year Babylonian captivity. The second 70 is the same duration, and that begins with the year with redemption, which is coming soon. We'll touch on that. Okay, let me see what's going on. You know, I've seen them kosher water in Israel. Let me see if I could show it to you. I have a bottle of water here that's imported from Italy. I don't know if the light's good enough. Let's see. You don't read Hebrew, but it's pretty simple. My index finger, where did it go, is right under the word kosher. And then for Passover, they have another one, they call it kosher power, which is kosher for Passover. It's so, I'm going to be in the Old Testament a lot today. It's so crazy. I mean, how do you kosher water? Let's talk about it. The law has fish that are unclean, right? Sure, like a turtle, an eel, okay, crab, lobster, all right? Now, that's the law, but when you read Acts 10, it's a different story what Yeshua changed. But he made all the food kosher, or clean, I should say, not kosher. Okay, and that's in Acts 10. You just got to read it, that's all. And so, you know, let's say you're swimming in the ocean, you're doing the standard crawl, your mouth is open, water comes in. Well, the water is in contact with unclean fish, there you go. Or in a lake, you're water skiing, you fall, you go flying into the water, your mouth is open, it gets in your nose, and you got turtles and gators in the lake, and there you go. You see? It makes no sense. You know. Okay. Someone called me a liar. Well, let's put it this way. Talk is cheap. I could say anybody's a liar, but what would you back it up with? See, people here laugh at you when you just go around and say, oh, you're a liar. You know, you got a scripture for it? Let's hear it. Otherwise, you make yourself look like you got a dunce cap on. Nobody takes you seriously. Talk is cheap. Anybody could say that about anybody. It doesn't mean it's true. So here's your chance. Put up a post that describes why you're calling me a liar. Why don't you do that? Waiting. I'm not going to say your name because it's 2 John verses 9 to 11. I don't greet people I don't know. I think somebody here needs some tossed salad, guys. I'm almost done. I'm going to put my email address up. Okay, I think I'm done here. Well, we never heard from this guy calling me a liar, huh? So I don't think we need him. Okay. Um, Being a Bible believing site, Old Testament and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise. If you join in or you don't join in, I have no control. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. So, Saudi Arabia signed a $50 billion trade understanding agreement with China in the last couple of days or so. And that means that Saudi Arabia is going to supply China with oil and other things, natural gas, I suppose. And previously, Saudi Arabia stated they don't want to sell oil or gas for dollars or euros. So now you have a $50 billion contract. Iran's going to be getting oil. China's going to be getting oil from Saudi Arabia, not Iran. Iran has sanctions on it. Now, I would say from this, and follow me closely, politicians all lie. That's why they're politicians. And they break promises. That's why they're politicians. But when you look at what they say and then you look at their actions, actions don't lie. And you put it together, you can usually find their true motive. So China does not have high hopes for Iran surviving much longer. because they have sweetheart deals with Iran to get oil and gas. And now they're shifting over to Saudi Arabia and Russia. China's getting their grain now from Russia. They're not buying it from America, Canada, and France. They're buying it from Russia. And of course, they're not going to pay in US dollars or euros. So that's a big piece of business that America just lost. Billions and billions of dollars a year. It's gone. Saudi Arabia very recently, days ago, sold off all its US debt instruments like bonds and stuff. Okay? They sold them. Saudi Arabia basically is finished with America, contrary to what you might be led to believe by the media. The actions of Saudi Arabia, they've had it with America. And that means the UAE is going to do everything Saudi Arabia does. They walk together. And there's indications that Jordan is going to follow suit by them visiting Iran and stuff like that. It looks like Jordan will, but they sell oil too. Now, Saudi Arabia is afraid of Yemen, which is a puppet of Iran, and they're next door to Saudi Arabia. And they have, in the past year and a half or so, attacked the Aramco oil refinery in Saudi Arabia, which is the biggest one they had, twice. Now, they one time did it with one missile, another time 2 missiles or drones or something. But they never went ahead and launched like 15 missiles and 25 drones at it to really devastate it. Saudi Arabia is afraid of that. And they don't think America will protect them. And they had a war with Yemen years ago, and it really never had a winner. They don't want to find out what will happen. Of course, their oil fields, oil refineries, ports where they offload the oil and gas onto ships, all this stuff will get damaged. Their palaces, their mansions, their estates, their yachts, their private jets, all this stuff could go down the tubes. So they went to Iran. It's not that difficult. They're already a Sharia law country. They're a dictatorship. And they don't see America attacking them, but they do see Iran attacking them. And Yemen. So they're scared. And that's what they did. And that's really bad for America because it's going to start a chain reaction. Oman would likely go, the UAE will go, then Oman will probably say, oh, let's make peace with Iran, it's safer. Jordan will say the same thing. Kuwait has a foot in Iran's door already. Iran sent their Navy there to dock up for a couple of days. It did exercises. I imagine Kuwait will join the fracas with Iran. And this is going to cause these nations to rise up against Israel. Now, because Iran will push them that way. Okay? Thinking. So to save the dollar, America's going to attack Iran. I think the October 7th thing was all about attacking Iran. I believe this was allowed to happen. Israel in the newspaper this morning just said, Haaretz just said that the government is saying, no, we don't want to pursue the investigation into October 7th now. It could cause the ICC or the ICJ court to issue an arrest warrant for Netanyahu or something. See, Netanyahu is scared of that investigation. because the circumstances were too absurd. And before it happened, he wasn't allowed to go see Biden. Biden never wanted him there. And then in September of last year, 2023, Biden all of a sudden out of the blue says, yeah, Netanyahu could come visit me anytime. He's always welcome, right? Maybe 2 weeks later, Netanyahu goes over there. I think it was September 23rd. And media sources are kind of implying that America told Netanyahu about this planned attack by Hamas, as well as other countries said that Israel knew about it. The party line from the government is that we didn't take it seriously, we made a mistake, but okay. You want to believe that, you're going to believe that. And he came back, and a little more than 2 weeks later, October 7th happened, and we had all our defenses down. And I'm not sure if Netanyahu knew they were going to take hostages. This is haunting him. So, the latest hostage deal that Hamas wants is the theater of the absurd. And Biden is not coming out and saying Hamas's demands are absurd. They're not realistic. They want to have Israel completely withdraw from Gaza permanently, including the Philadelphia corridor, where I would estimate 10,000 big truckloads of weapons and concrete and steel beams for all the tunnels pass through, and Egypt is definitely complicit. So their role in this was to provide or let the weapons go into Hamas. Okay? You can't hide 10,000 trucks coming in. Come on. So Egypt doesn't want us in the Philadelphia corridor because they want to continue their role in the destruction of Israel and making money at the same time, which is smuggling weapons, allowing the smuggling of weapons into Israel. Now these weapons got to land or come on a ship to Egypt, and then get offloaded to trucks and then go in. They don't just appear out of the clear blue sky. So Netanyahu is so bad. You have people that don't live here don't understand how evil this thing is. I call them a thing. And he's a human, the weapons, caused a lot of damage in Israel. So Israel let this thing on October 7th happen for quite a few hours before they suppressed it. And I don't know if they planned on hostages or not, but I imagine the idea would be Israelis would get riled up, be a big war with Hamas, the other satellites would join in, Iran would join in, and it would be an excuse to destroy Iran. But there's a double side to this coin. It would also suppress Israel. Biden will not let Israel have a victory. I'm telling you, listen, I'll make it so simple. You'll have no trouble understanding this. The war started some days after Israel invaded. All they had to do was cut the humanitarian aid. Period. No fuel for diesel vehicles or generators. No water, no medical, no food. And the war would have been over at the latest Thanksgiving or possibly Christmas. It would have been over. That's it. Biden was out there every day with Blinken and Sullivan beating the drum, humanitarian aid. So they made us let fuel come in. cooking fuel and diesel fuel, food, and water. And Hamas was stealing all the food and water and stockpiling it for themselves, raiding the UN warehouses. It came out the UN people, the large amount of them were working for Hamas. Biden kept screaming, use restraint, use restraint. Now it's 11 months, it's still going on, and the hostage is there. And Biden doesn't take any blame for this. Biden's blaming Hamas, now he's blaming Israel, and he's saying, this is our last attempt. If it doesn't work, we're done trying. Well, I don't know what that means. Okay, you're done trying, what next? We don't know what next is. We don't know. So what is Hamas asking for? They want a full withdrawal permanently out of Israel, out of Gaza, before they tell us how many hostages they have, what condition they're in, how many are dead. They're not going to tell us anything about that until we're out of Gaza. And then what do we do if they turn around and say, well, we only have 5 hostages we could find. They were put in people's homes, and then in all the turmoil, oh, here's your 5 hostages. What does Israel do? Turn around and go back into Gaza? Where are the rest of them? I don't know. We don't know where they are. You see the stupidity of this? They won't give us a number. Then they say they want prisoners in the Israeli jails for terrorism released. They want, for every woman hostage, I think 30 prisoners, the first prisoner swap, and then they want 50 prisoners released for every Israeli soldier they have. Then there's a second generation of swaps with the remaining hostages, where they want 500 terrorist prisoners released from jail for each hostage. So there's about 5,000, 6,000 terrorists that were caught killing or attempting to kill or harming Israelis just to be terrorists. And they want all of them back. And they'll go to Gaza and they'll join Hamas. What do you think they'll do? So they'll replace 5,000 of their dead Hamas members with the prisoners. Regroup. Egypt will allow the smuggling of weapons immediately as soon as Israel leaves. And I tell you the truth, it could be as little as 2 weeks or less till they start shooting rockets and missiles into Israel. Because they know Israel is not going to invade Gaza again. The international community would bust the gut. So Israel, because Israel made a permanent ceasefire, so Israel is saying, no, we're just going to do a 42-day ceasefire, 6 weeks. Hamas wants no part of that, because as soon as they start launching rockets, Israel just say, well, you broke the 6-week ceasefire, we're going back in. But they're going to remain in there, because they know this is what Hamas is going to do. Hamas breaks all the ceasefires. They know it. They know it. So that's why Netanyahu doesn't want to completely leave Gaza. He doesn't want a permanent ceasefire, and he wants to remain on the border with Egypt. They call it the Philadelphia Corridor. So Hamas can't rebuild weapons. If you let them get new weapons, it's over. You'll have another massacre going on, or an attempted one. They'll just join Hezbollah, that's all, and start fighting against Israel. America is saying, oh, Iran could attack any day. I think at this point it's bogus. Israel is completely not behaving that way. There's no alerts, there's no restrictions on outdoor gatherings, there's no nothing going on. Israel doesn't believe it. Now, the Israeli military intelligence is not going to get out there, make videos on social media and say, I don't know why America is telling us this, but our intelligence doesn't show anything like that. Okay? But their behavior, the actions of the Israeli military are such that it doesn't look like they will. Now, what really happened with Hezbollah, what is it, about 10 days ago or something, is they did have thousands, the figure I heard was 6,700 missile launches and missiles lined up to attack Israel. Now, the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, who they call the Rat, he said that he just put empty missile launches up to bait Israel. Okay, let me tell you why this is a stupid lie. Anybody in military intelligence or, an officer in the military knows that these missiles are meaningless. It's how many missile launchers you have. So Nasrallah would never have set up hundreds or thousands of missile launches to be sacrificed, never in a billion years. Israel busted out Hezbollah tremendously in terms of their might. Seems that mostly down to Katyusha rockets, anti-tank rockets. Israel attacks Hezbollah every single day, multiple locations, every single day. Keeps knocking them down, knocking them down, knocking them down. Okay, we're fighting avidly in Gaza. The Hamas down in Rafah area, which is where the Philadelphia corridor is in the south, is 80% not functioning as a unit, I guess is the way you would say it. In other words, they're still alive, but they're disjointed in small groups, and there's no leadership, and they're not taking orders from a central command. There's nobody steering the boat. And Israel is continuing to avidly keep pushing in there. Now, what they did with the 6 hostages they killed is the Hamas leaders said that the soldiers guarding the hostages were under orders to execute them if Israeli troops got close. So what are they doing? Hamas is saying, if you keep trying to find us and root us out of the tunnels, every time you get close, we're going to kill whatever hostages we have there. You're never going to get them back alive unless you submit to our outrageous demands. Now, as a result of that, there's people in Israel that are protesting the Netanyahu government avidly because their friends and family are the hostages and they want them back, and they got tunnel vision. They don't, they're not sitting there thinking, well, when they come back, we make these concessions, and then what's going to happen is they're going to shoot another few thousand missiles at Israel over a few days. They're not thinking like that. They're thinking, oh, 11 months, where's my daughter, where's my son, where's my niece, where's my nephew, where's this, they're just tunnel vision. That's all their goal is. I can't take this, I don't know what happened to my daughter, is she getting raped 5 times a day, what is this, they rape the men too. So, they're protesting. So they got Histadrut, the big union with 800,000 members, the other day to call for a strike. And people went to court, and by the time the judge heard them, it was lunchtime, I guess. And they issued an order at 2 o'clock in the afternoon that strike has to cease, and cease it did. So that didn't go anywhere, and the demonstrations aren't going anywhere, and the right-wing side of Israel is starting to have protests and demonstrations. So yeah, Israel's somewhat divided, but not that much. I'm not seeing anything that makes me think we're headed to a violent civil war at all. What I am seeing is there could be a vote of no confidence. In other words, a lawful, process through the laws of Israel to get rid of Netanyahu, and that's the right of the people to do that whenever they want, and that's not anything that unusual for Israel. So Israel would be politically divided, but nothing new there, and they're not out there to start killing each other. Israel's quite far away from that. So Hamas is beating the drum. Rumors are protesters on the left-wing side are being paid by some entities tracing back to Iran and like Qatar and those kind of people. I don't have any idea if that's true or not. I've been exposed to that in news, but I do not know if it's true or not true. So Biden does not want Israel to win anywhere. Okay? So now he's turning, instead of saying Hamas's demands are insane and don't leave any room for the protection of Israel, he's saying that he blames Hamas, then he blames Israel. Now with the hostages, he said first Hamas should pay, then he clarifies it and says the leaders of Hamas should pay. So the leader of Hamas in Gaza is Sinwar, and he's supposedly surrounded by a bunch of hostages handcuffed to each other. So if his building is stormed, the hostages will be either they'll threaten to kill them or they'll kill them. Netanyahu has taken an approach of targeted assassinations, some killing of troops in Gaza. It's possible that 15 or 20,000 or so, maybe a higher figure, were killed over the 11 months. But it doesn't seem likely that everybody's going to sit still and Israel finishes the rest of them off because they use human shields. Now, 3,000 approximately Hamas, let's call them soldiers, terrorist soldiers, came into Israel on October 7th. And they estimate someplace around 6,000 Gazan civilians joined them to steal, lie, plunder, pillage, rape, and take hostages back because Hamas was paying $10,000 per hostage. The Israeli people know there's perhaps 5% innocent people in Gaza that really don't want to destroy Israel. The rest of them are anti-Israel big time. Okay? A lot of them are mad at Hamas now, but they hate Israel. So Netanyahu demolished most of Gaza. I would say probably approaching 90% of the buildings are damaged or destroyed. You can't drive through the streets unless you're a tank or some big military vehicle with rubber tires 4 feet high or something, The streets are all full of rubble, broken concrete, girders, beams, all kinds of garbage in the street. You can't drive in the streets, you can't park. The stores are to a good extent destroyed. The government buildings, the universities, because Hamas occupies these, uses many hospitals, apartments, private homes. Gone. So they're living in tents. So where the heck are they going to live? So part of the ceasefire from Hamas is they want Israel to rebuild Gaza. So let me see if I can make you understand this. They sneak attack us on October 7th, burn people alive, put a baby in an oven, cut a fetus out of a woman alive, tortured people, burned them in their houses, burned them in cars, burned them tied together by baling wire, shot them, killed them, raped them in front of the other family members, and now Israel retaliates and they want Israel to repair Gaza. And you don't hear Biden come out and talk about the sheer absurdity of this. See, Biden's mad at everybody because he can't pull it off. It's very unusual that they give up. I think he'll renege on that and not give up, but he said he would give up. It's the last chance. So what is he going to do? Is he going to say, okay, there's no ceasefire. Okay, I want all the aircraft, military personnel, and Navy vessels to come back to America and leave the Mediterranean and the Middle East. No, he can't do that because he's there to get Iran. And Netanyahu and his clique at the high end know this. So Biden ain't going anywhere. Why is Biden saying, Israel has to wait for a missile barrage from Iran before we attack Iran, which he's obviously advocating? Because he wants to see Israel get punished. He wants this Hamas war drawn out. He wants the Hezbollah war drawn out. He wants it so Israel gets broken down. That's why they're saying Iran could attack any day. Iran could attack any day. Iran could attack any day. We stopped listening to that. Iran's scared to attack. They want the Israeli people scared, frustrated, weary, giving up, and say, okay, let's pull out of Gaza and not go back. And then the next thing that's going to happen is they're going to be getting pressured by the United States to give the West Bank back. That's what he wants. He doesn't want to see Israel. Oh, they also want Israel to not occupy the buffer zone inside Gaza, which is about 2 kilometers, not much. What Israel wants to do is have that 2-kilometer buffer zone monitored heavily with surveillance all the time. So if anybody tries to storm into Israel, they'll get picked up, and then you could put landmines in the buffer zone. You could just cover it with machine gun fire, artillery, mortars, tanks, all of the above. And they don't want that. They don't want that at all. I mean, Gaza, Hamas. They were negotiating that they wanted safe passage to Turkey or around, I think it was Turkey, and they wouldn't be hunted down or prosecuted or anything like that. So Biden is not saying he's on the side of Hamas, but his actions tell us he wants Hamas to continue in Gaza and kill more Israelis. That's what his actions tell us. He doesn't seem to care what happens to Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's because France is really peeved at Hezbollah because they have a lot of investments in Lebanon that are going down the tubes rather rapidly, and they don't want to see it get worse. So he's actually pretty interested in seeing Hezbollah go away, and I'll tell you why. Well, I'm going to take a fast break for a minute. Now, the big difference here between Hamas and Hezbollah is Hezbollah is in Lebanon, and Lebanon has a legitimate non-Muslim country that has no interest in having a war with Israel. It has a government. And the government, the idea would be that Hezbollah is diminished severely in their capability to fight, launch missiles, rockets, and stuff like that. And then the Lebanese government would move into the Litani River area, which is the UN mandate defines an area from the border with Israel up to the Litani River, which is about 17 to 18 miles, and Hezbollah is not supposed to be allowed in there. Now, they put UN troops there for years, but it's a joke. The UN troops are afraid of them. So, Israel is being used to bust out Hezbollah. Of course, the fact that 80,000 Israelis are not able to return home to the border by Lebanon because of all the missiles, rockets, anti-tank rockets, etc., helps Biden putting Israel under severe pressure to give the West Bank back and reverse Bible prophecy. So Biden's thought is that when Hezbollah is busted out, the Lebanese government will be told that if you don't go down there and occupy that 17, 18-mile buffer zone, Israel's going to create its own buffer zone and take that land away from you. So they'll go down there. Because Hezbollah will be significantly weaker and unable to do much. And the government will also have to stop Iranian weapons from coming in. America and other countries, France, and probably give them some help, military equipment, stuff like that. So they don't want Israel going around blowing up Lebanon at large like they did Gaza, because there's a legitimate government in Lebanon that's not warmongering, and they just want Hezbollah busted out. So Israel is serving the purpose of doing that, okay? France doesn't want to send troops in there. This guy's afraid of his own shadow, Macron. So America doesn't want to, because they're not going to help Israel like that. They'll give Israel weapons, stuff like that. Now, Hamas is a different story. They are the government, and they are the terrorists, and they are the military. Now, in Yemen, it's similar to Gaza, but not the same. There is a regular Yemen government that has about 35,000 military, and they work with the Houthis. They're friends with them. They cooperate together. The Houthis are at least 165,000, and the Yemen military 35,000. So they don't have anything. Yeah. America can't control Yemen either. Okay? They're still launching attacks on ships. The last ship they attacked was Danish-owned, Singapore-flagged, and they attacked it because they said it was going to Israel or coming from Israel. And they burned it. And it's probably nothing left of it by now. It was on fire. That was 2-3 days ago. The amount of ships they can hit is curtailed. That could be for two reasons. One is America and UK planes are constantly surveillancing them and attacking missile launches and anything else they could see going to attack a ship. And the amount of ship traffic in the Red Sea is diminished tremendously. You know, Iran could pass, Russia, China, maybe Pakistan, you know. Some of the buddies of the Houthis can pass their ships through, but that's it. But their buddies can't use shipping lines that had one ship go to Israel since October 7th. They attacked the whole shipping line. You know, they're out of control. So Biden and his administration are probably dumb enough to think that if Israel submits to the Hamas ceasefire, that Hezbollah will stop and the Houthis will stop. Is this possible? Possible, yes. Likely, no. Why? Because the Middle East thinking is not like Europe or America or South America or Asia. These terrorists, the Houthis and the Hezbollah, will say, well, America and Israel are afraid of us, and let's bargain for more. Let's not stop till they give the West Bank back. That's what, you know, Biden would love to see. But Biden's got another set of problems. And that's Iran and Russia knocking down the demand for the dollar by conducting trade amongst themselves and with the BRICS network in non-US and non-Euro currencies, reducing the demand for these currencies. When the value of the US dollar goes down, that means America has to pay more US dollars for an import for goods they want to bring into America. There's some offsets to that. I'll tell you what they are. Exports out of America would likely become cheaper for foreigners to buy, and tourism in America would probably soar if the currency really dropped a lot, because they would be able to have cheap vacations in America. But when the demand for the dollar goes away, America's not going to be able to operate the way it has been doing, with fantastic military spending, and just keep, you know, increasing the debt on the poor people, on the people in America tremendously. They can't, it's going to have to cave in. It'll cripple America in terms of, let's say, the price of fuel will go up a lot. Everything will go up. Clothing, everything. It'll, you know, and I'm not just talking 2-3%. You're probably going to be looking initially, you know, 8%, then 17%, then 22%, and it'll keep getting outrageously crazy. And the people that own the companies that make stuff, you know, like the guy who has a copper mine, has trees to sell for paper, cattle ranch and stuff like that, they'll just raise their prices. That's how it works. And the people, the employers aren't going to say, oh, we'll be fair to you and raise the wages. Strong unions might. But the people are not going to be able to, you know, meet their needs. People in America that think they're middle class are so deceived, it's not even funny. as I was pursuing Arab food, there's a guy who opened up famous steak restaurants in the UAE and some other Arab countries called Salt By, B-A-E, Salt By. He's a young Arab Muslim guy and seems to know his way around the restaurant business quite well. And when people order an expensive steak, like in the UAE where he hangs out, he would drop salt in the crease of his arm here and put it on their steak. I find that rather disgusting. I wouldn't want that, but that was his trademark. His restaurants are thriving. They have one in New York, one in Miami, and one in Beverly Hills, and there's probably one in Las Vegas, I don't know. But I know they got New York, Beverly Hills, and Miami. They might have more. Without alcohol, a steak dinner for two there is going to hit $500. Okay? Hamburger dinner you might get out for $2.25, $2.50. Now, you have no idea that there's tons of people in America that can afford to go there whenever they want. Now, if you got kids, you got 2 kids or 3 kids, you're gonna get out of there for $700, $800, $900 for a meal. The hamburgers are something like $35. If you can eat hamburgers, you're gonna get by cheaper. But your French fries are probably gonna be $17. Your salad's gonna be $25, $30. Dessert will be $20, $30, But if you just want to go there and have a hamburger and a Coke, and French fries, you're probably going to get 2 people who get out of there for $100, $125. I hear his hamburgers stink. But his steaks are quite good. He's a steakhouse, he's not a hamburger guy. There's a lot of restaurants that are priced like this in America. These wealthy people buy cars now. The Bugattis are up to $4 million a car. The Lamborghinis, the Aston Martins, those are $400,000 or $500,000 a car, like the Rolls Royces and the Bentleys. They don't mind paying that. What they'll spend in a nice restaurant for one meal for 2 people would probably pay your food bill for a whole family for 2 or 3 weeks. People, they've done a great job in confusing people and thinking they're middle class when they're really lower class. And people like doctors, dentists and them, lawyers, they might make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, maybe $600,000, $800,000 in some cases, right? And they think they're rich. They're middle class. They're actually lower middle class. That's your lower middle class, the surgeon, the corporate lawyer. I don't know what this is. Potential fraud. I love that system. So, you don't have any idea. People run around, they make $50,000, $100,000 a year, and they get comfortable, they're happy. They've done a great job of making poor people think they're not poor. It's unbelievable. My parents' generation, anybody that wanted to buy a house bought a house. You know, back in the early 50s, houses were selling for $2,500, $3,000, $4,000 in a lot of areas. New cars were $900, $1,000 for a Chevy, a Ford, a Plymouth, the basic, you know. You want to go out and buy a nice wool heavy overcoat, or $5, $7. You go to a nice luncheonette in your neighborhood, you get a cheeseburger, fries, and a Coke, it'd be like 60 cents. Rents in apartments in New York City were, $40, $50 a month. A guy that never finished high school, that had, like a blue collar job without being in a union, could buy a house and buy a car and take vacations. Boy, they got away from that. Boy, did they ever. People will never, the way it's going in America, people will never own a house. People buy houses and lose them all the time. The price of cars is insane how much it's gone up. But wages don't go up. You lose out. Unless you're a business owner. And a lot of them go bankrupt too. Economically, I think the whole medical community is insane. The price of medical care is so high in America, I can't understand it. People go in and have major operations, and the bill they put to the insurance company is hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. You know? How could this be? When I grew up in the 50s, the doctor would come to the house, make a house call for $5. You didn't have to go there and sit in the waiting room. If you didn't feel good, we stayed home. We called the doctor. He'd tell you roughly when he's going to be there, and you waited for him. In New York City, MD license plates back then, which had to be a doctor to get and prove it, the cops wouldn't give them tickets for double parking unless they blocked someone in, or they blocked a fire hydrant or something. They wouldn't get a ticket. So then he asked the doctor to phone the drugstore while he's there for the prescription. He'd call the drugstore. And then he asked the drugstore to have the kid bring it to your house, and you'd pay him. I was one of those kids that delivered from the drugstores. And that's what they would do. Getting medical care was not very difficult. It really wasn't. And I don't know, the drugs really worked back then. You know, the kids would get sick. You'd stay out of school. You'd have I remember you'd have a fever, 102, so usually, what I used to come in as a kid, like 102 or something, sore throat, nose, whatever, cough, whatever. The doctor would come and give you a strong cough medicine, which would have codeine and an opiate in it. And they'd give you an injection of usually a type of penicillin. And you'd get the cough medicine, and if you wanted a nose spray, they'd do that too to dry your nose up. And practically every time, would usually take 24 to 48 hours, and you would be pretty much better. That was it. That's all it took. And I remember just once, all the times I was sick over the years, the doctor had to come back a second time for a second injection. You're not better the next day, the day after that, they take your temperature, still the temperature, you come back and give you another injection, and boom, you get better. You know. It was a reasonable experience. If you went to the emergency room, I don't know what they charge you, $10, $15, maybe at most, I don't know. A lot of people didn't bother with health insurance. And health insurance was cheap. It'd be, I don't know, $5, $10 a month for a family or something like that. Because the premiums weren't that high, because the medical bills weren't that high. It was easy. And the price of drugs wasn't that high. And they worked well. Then for some reason the doctors got away from the giving you the injections, and they went to pills. And I don't know, over the years you wouldn't get better the next day, like the injection would take you 3-4 days. And you'd be using other medicines in those 3 or 4 days, like cough syrup, decongestants, Tylenol, aspirin, stuff like that. I know other countries in Asia, South America, Central America, where the people just go into the drugstore and they ask the druggist what to get, or they know, and they give them a syringe that's pre-filled. You just got to put the needle in it, which is easy, and stab yourself. And that's what they do. And they get better, like the old days. They sell double or triple penicillin injections. They sell Rocephin injections. And the other thing I learned from people in these third world countries is, instead of taking, 2 antibiotics a day or maybe 3, the first day they're sick, they take 6 or 7. They don't feel good the next day, they do it again, and then they get better by the 3rd day, usually the 2nd day. According to the American doctors, they overdose themselves with the antibiotics, but they tend to get better quickly. And they don't follow the protocol of take all the antibiotics over 7 or 10 days. They just load up for a day or 2, and they seem to get better. I don't know how they have any energy taking that many antibiotics. It'd probably knock you out. You'd probably spend a day sleeping, which may help you. When I was a kid, they had cough medicine that had laudanum in it, I think, codeine, different things. And when you took it, it knocked you out like a light, okay? And you'd sleep through the night. Now they give you some codeine syrups, and you take it in every 2 or 3 hours. You got to wake up and take another dose, and you don't sleep as well. Well, I think if you took the heavier cough medicines that they don't like to sell anymore, you go knock yourself out for 8, 9, 10 hours from the medicine, and you don't cough, and you wake up, I don't know, I would think you're going to be well on the way of healing, you know, combined with a lot of antibiotics, you know. So I just do natural health care. I don't go for the other stuff. But we run our own healthcare clinic. You could speak, spiritually speaking, on the channel. You just put in a prayer request, and many people will pray for you. And we've had many, many, many healings over the years. So no ceasefire. Biden is not going to pull the ships and the planes out of the Middle East. That ain't going to happen. He got to stop Iran. And Iran is not reasonable. The Houthis are not reasonable. The Hezbollah is not reasonable, nor is Hamas, nor are the militias in Iraq and Syria. And America's going to wait for a provocation to justify a war. And as I told you, I suspect that there'll be an attack on Iran on or before, I think it's September 18th, when they're going to sentence Trump. Now that has to cause blowback in America. People are going to say that's stealing the election. That could be what Biden's waiting for. Now, Biden administration is so out of touch with the Middle East, they might think that if Israel makes a ceasefire permanently with Hamas according to their terms, that Hezbollah will stop the fighting, the Houthis will stop the fighting, the Iraq-backed militias in Iraq and Syria will stop, and Iran will stop. I don't believe it. I think you show weakness like that, undoubtedly they're going to push harder against you, trying to get more. They're just going to keep trying to get more. And they don't know that. Or they fail to believe it. So I think all roads lead to the following: an attack on Iran, which is going to devastate Iran, Iraq, and Syria. And Israel will take care of Hezbollah. And the Houthis, I think, will try to get in the fight, and they'll eventually get dealt with as well. Yemen appears to be Edom in the Bible, which gets destroyed. Russia, they're already taking Russia out. Ukraine's getting more F-16s. They're advertising for retired F-16 pilots from NATO countries, America, and so forth, to go fly as mercenaries for them. You know, that's a tricky thing. Pilots could get jobs as pilots. Okay? A pilot can be a pilot. So What are they going to have to pay an F-16 pilot to go to Ukraine in a very dangerous, hostile environment where he could get killed in the air and on the ground and sleeping in his bed? I don't know. Maybe there's some guys that need work and they'll do it for $100,000 a year. Others might want $250,000, $300,000 a year to do it. It's dangerous work. I don't know how they're going to do that. And then, is the pilot current on the F-16? Does he have to get checked out? I don't know. Well, checking out's a few days probably. Well, they're continuing to hit Russia. Russia's pushing hard in Ukraine and taking more towns and villages back and making progress. And the Ukraine's made very minor progress in the area of Russia that they control. They expanded it by about 5 square kilometers, not much. And like I said, this war looks like they're going to destroy each other. But if NATO jumps in, they'll take out Russia. Russia won't hold them. Won't make it. So what's Israel going to be doing? Well, they're going to keep attacking Hezbollah, trying to dismantle it more and more and more. So when the attack on Iran happens, Hezbollah is not going to be able to join in with Iran. And they're trying to dismantle Hamas more and more. So there's no unified Hamas left in Gaza. It's all disjointed. And then they're going to be dividing Gaza into sections, maybe just 2. They might do 3, I don't know. And they're going to make like a border between North and South Gaza with troops on it, and they're going to search trucks and people and, not let military figures from Hamas pass from one side to another, no equipment, no war equipment, and make the place less conducive to be a fighting force. In the meantime, they'll continue to look for tunnels and destroy more tunnels, look for hostages, hopefully capture more hostages. See what happens. But I feel an attack on Iran is imminent. And I believe NATO will use their proxy Ukraine to keep pushing into Russia, attacking Russia, annexing more land in Russia, and they'll start dividing Russia up into different countries and swipe the natural resources of wheat, grain, oil, natural gas, things like that. That Russia has other natural resources. That's what I think they're going to do. That's what it seems they're going to do. They're saying they got up to 800,000 NATO soldiers that they could deploy into Ukraine. I think their priority is to shove Russia out of Ukraine right now, and I think Russia's priority is to shove Ukraine out of Ukraine right now. That's what both sides are trying to do. So that lends itself to the fact they're just going to, Ukraine and Russia are just going to keep destroying each other. I think that's the way this thing is going to go. I don't really see it coming any other way. I'm going to check my notes. So Biden's got a very bad dark cloud over America's head with the decreased demand of the U.S. dollar, sinking the value of the dollar. And they're being very deceitful about Saudi Arabia. They're acting like Saudi Arabia is their buddy when Saudi Arabia is stabbing America in the back. And Biden is dead bent on blaming anybody for the failed ceasefire except him and his idiot team. China doesn't seem to think that Iran has a long-term future. They know things that are not coming out in the media. They're not comfortable just relying for oil and gas on Iran. They don't think Iran's got a long lifespan. For the first time, the UN Security Council is meeting tomorrow to discuss the hostage situation in Gaza. Not that they'll do anything, they're going to discuss it. I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to issue a cry to a ceasefire. What this might be about is they're going to lean on Israel to get such a ceasefire signed. And they may progress and say, we'll enforce the ceasefire ourselves and send a few thousand troops down to Gaza. I haven't seen that, and it could be vetoed by America or the UK. So I don't know. The UK stopped selling 30 out of about 300. Israel had about 350 or so weapons licenses with the UK. That means they could buy and export weapons from the UK. And the UK withdrew 30 of those permissions for 30 different weapons. Which ones they are, I don't know. So the UK is turning anti-Israel quite nicely and rapidly. If they leave Russia, China, and Iran alone, the US dollar is going to be in the toilet. America continues showing weakness in the Middle East, which they're showing. Iran will take control of all the oil-producing countries in the Middle East and tell them what to do, which will be cut back production, The US dollar is beginning to weaken against the euro and the pound sterling, by the way. Not significant, slight, but it could be a trend beginning. One of the situations that if Biden doesn't take a lot of action very soon, and the value of the dollar declines, like 20, 30, 40% or something, the inflation impacts on America will be very high, and the net effect of that's going to be the people giving offerings to these churches are not going to continue giving that size of an offering. It's going to shrink. Okay. Let me check the chat, and then we'll get into the two witnesses. I'm looking for questions in the chat, or if people are cursing us in there, I want to take that out. It'll take a moment or two, and I do answer questions if they have anything remotely to do with what we're talking about. We work in English here. I can't go around and deal with foreign languages, so um, I really, why these people calling me grandpa? I don't think they're being nice to me. Do you? Well, somebody put some comment up about um, something about it being nice or something in America. I don't know. I'm not going to take it down. It's why do people call me Stan Lee? I don't even know who Stan Lee is for sure. I think he makes moving pictures or something. I don't know why they do that. Well, if you tell me I'm absurd and you don't give scriptures support for it, you talk is cheap. You're just flapping your jaw. It's meaningless. Nobody's paying attention to you. I don't practice Talmudism. Should have listened to my video. I think it's a bad thing. Better than stacking up food cans, learn how to can and buy the jars which are reusable and do your own canning. I get social media in Hebrew. I get it from the Arabs, things like that, from Israel groups, and I live in Israel. I'm reciting Fox News and CNN? Absolutely not. You never hear anything like what I say on there. Why do you say things that aren't true? Toss salad, guys. Oh, this is an Israel hater. Okay. We'll just get rid of him. Yeah, we're going to do the two witnesses in a minute. All right, we'll do some work on the two witnesses. First of all, who are the two witnesses? Are they Elijah and Moses? No, it can't be Moses. The scripture says it's elected unto man to die only once. We know the two witnesses die in Revelation 11, I believe it is, right? And we know Moses died. So Moses is out. It says Elijah shall come first, so we know Elijah's going to be here. The other one is Apostle John, because it says, Yeshua said in the English version, it says, there be some standing here today that shall not taste of death till they see the kingdom of God. And that was said to the disciples, the apostles. But when they translate the word some, it really means someone, an individual. And that's Apostle John, the beloved. It also says in Revelation regarding Apostle John that he will prophesy again to many nations and tongues and so forth, and that hasn't happened. And the two witnesses are, we're told, they're also prophets. So, and they prophesy. So that's it. Elijah's a prophet. Apostle John's a prophet. What you don't know is the prophets. Well, we've got to go to Isaiah 1 and see how God's going to run Israel after he gets rid of this absurd, failing democracies. We pick this up in Isaiah 1:24. Therefore saith Adonai Yehovah of armies, it says hosts, it should say armies, I think. The mighty one of Israel. So Yehovah calls himself the mighty one of Israel. I will ease me of my adversaries and avenge me of my enemies. And I will turn my hand upon thee. That's not a bad thing. Purely purge away the dross and take away all thy tin. And I will restore thy judges as at the first. Well, who were they? Moses and Aaron at the first. They were prophets, yes, and they were judges. The two witnesses will be running Israel very shortly as judges, because they're prophets. Okay? And then the two witnesses. So they're going to be the judges. And thy counselors as at the beginning. That's the 70 counselors that Moses and Aaron had. The two witnesses will have that also. As at the beginning. Afterward, thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. Zion will be redeemed with judgment, and her converts with righteousness. And the destruction of the transgressors and of all the sinners shall be together. They that forsake the Lord shall be consumed. Now, when you read this, you also have to take into account Zechariah 13, verse 8. And I will bring the third part through the fire. Whoops, wrong verse 8. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, call Haaretz, land of Israel, saith Jehovah, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die. That means they're dead, right? And the third part shall be left therein. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and refine them as silver is refined, and try them as gold is tried. Sounds a lot like Isaiah 1, doesn't it? They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, Yehovah Elohim. This never happened. Maybe you'll argue that 2/3 were cut off at some point in history, but the 1/3 were never raised up to serve Jehovah. That's never happened yet. Now, we see this again in Malachi 3. Now, these are all things the churches never teach you, And rather than me cram it down your throat, why they never teach you, ask yourself. Behold, I will send, Malachi 3, I will send my Malach, which is the same word as Malach, the guy who wrote the book, the prophet. It's not Malachi, it's Malach, it's a messenger. And that's referencing Elijah. And he shall prepare the way before me. Well, John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah. They asked him if he was Elijah, and he said no. So he had the spirit of Elijah, and he was preparing the way for Yeshua on earth at that time. Okay? And and Adonai, whom you seek, shall suddenly come to his temple. Oh, there's going to be another temple then. Oh, okay, there will. And it's not New Jerusalem. Revelation 21 says there's no temple in New Jerusalem. So let's not start breaking scriptures. Okay? And Jehovah whom you seek shall suddenly come. Adonai, that's the glory of God of Israel that was with Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And in Exodus 23, I think verse 20, it says God placed his name, which is Jehovah, in this angel, which is Michael, the highest angel. So this would enable him to use the name of Jehovah when he was receiving offerings, amongst other things. Okay. Even the Malach of the covenant, now we're back to Elijah, whom you delight in. Why do they say Malach of the covenant, the messenger of the covenant? Because the Jews think, correctly I might add, that Elijah will come and teach them the Bible. And he will. Whom you delight in, behold, he shall come, saith Jehovah of hosts. But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire and like a fuller's soap. So what does this tell us? It tells us that this is the same as the 2/3 getting cut off. The bad ones in Israel, the ones that rip each other off, scam them, don't fear the Lord, serve the unclean spirits and all that stuff, they're going bye-bye. They're going to take the dirt now. But who may abide the day of his coming, and who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire and like a fuller's soap, and he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto Jehovah an offering in righteousness. Then shall, you see, in righteousness is not him teaching them how to kill the animal or walk it to the altar or whatever. It's teaching the priests, the Levites and the Kohanim, how to live their lives according to the Bible. That's where the righteousness comes in from. Learning how to cut the animal's jugular correctly is not going to give you righteousness. Got it? It's how they live, how they work, how they act, how they deal with the neighbors, friends, strangers, family, blah, blah, blah. It's the whole thing, following the whole Bible, and that's what Elijah's going to teach them. And I expect Apostle John will join in too. Then shall the offerings of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto Jehovah, as in the days of old, as in the former years. Well, that means the blessings of the Lord. Read Deuteronomy 28 to the end of the chapter. The blessings of the Lord will come on Israel when this happens. And their enemies no longer have a chance. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, that's the witches of any flavor, and against false swearers, the people who go to court and take false oaths, and against those that oppress the hireling, the companies that rip off the workers in his wages, the widow, well, they do things against widows here, they try to steal their houses legally and all that, and the fatherless, the orphan, and that turn aside the stranger from his right. In other words, they try to trip up the people that weren't born and raised in Israel. And fear not me, that means they're not believers, saith Jehovah of hosts. Okay? And this again is Zechariah 13, 8, and 9, the 2/3 getting cut off. It's also Ezekiel 34, which goes into it over there too. For I am Jehovah, I change not, therefore you sons of Yaakov are not consumed. Okay, even from the days of your fathers you have turned away. Okay, it goes on to that. All right, now, so we see Elijah operating in Malachi 3 with the priests doing offerings. Now, where's the government of Israel? They would try to kill him if he was doing that. And maybe that's why they're not around anymore. And this might happen before the battle of Zechariah 12, which the church never really teaches you about in its correctness. They teach you the first few verses only. Let me open your eyes to the two witnesses here, which is where they start working. Now, the two witnesses are in Israel. Apostle John has been here ever since. He hasn't died because it's elected unto man to die only once. And he's destined to die. So he's still here. That's called everlasting life, which is not immortality, just live a great long time. And Elijah is here too. They were both born of a flesh mother and a flesh father. Yeshua is the only begotten Son. He's the only one begotten of the Holy Spirit and a flesh mother. He's the firstborn. Why would God call him the firstborn if he was the only son? We'll cover that. Zechariah 12:1. The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith Jehovah, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege against both Judah and against Jerusalem. Okay. Means a cup of trembling, you'll be shaking, be so scared. And the cup word is perhaps a basin or a water trough type size thing, a big thing that many people can drink in at the same time. They're not getting drunk with alcohol. They're going to shake like somebody coming off an alcohol binge shakes. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. Not very encouraging for them, is it? Though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. And now a siege is not an invasion attack, it's a surrounding and fighting at them while you're surrounding them, to preparatory for an attack invasion. Zechariah 12:4. In that day, saith Jehovah, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness, and I will open my eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. Now, the word for horse in Hebrew is sus. It means a horse, and it also means a swallow, that bird that flies. Now, there's no word back in these days for an aircraft or a tank or a Humvee. You know, they didn't have any words for that. So we see the prophecy coming as a horse, which could mean the flying bird called the swallow, which could mean aircraft. I don't know, but it's a good theory to talk about anyway. And the governors of Judah Now, the word governors would be better translated chiefs or the judges. Remember Isaiah 1, the judges? That's who he's talking about. And the judges of Judah shall say in their heart. Now, this is twisted, okay? It really is. The inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength. No, that doesn't say it. It's saying the inhabitants of Jerusalem, their strength will be in Jehovah of hosts, their Elohim, their God. So there's a lot of believers in Jerusalem when this happens. In that day, remember this is a one-day event. This is your day of vengeance, I believe. In that day will I make the governors, the chiefs of Judah, like an earth of fire among the wood. Oh, now I'm getting your attention with the two witnesses. And like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall devour, better translated, burn up. And they shall burn up all the people round about on the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem shall remain still in her own place, even in Jerusalem. They twist the words on that. Nothing happens to Jerusalem. So, who do you know that has fire coming out of their mouth? In that day will I make the governors of the judges of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall burn up all the people round about. Well, he says it twice because there's two witnesses. That's who this is. And they're here and they're just waiting to get sent out and equipped and sent out. And this could happen real soon. Let me keep reading. Zechariah 12:7. Jehovah also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify. In that day, again, that day, a day, shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David. Now, the feeble are the feeble, old people, sick people, ill people, bent over, using walkers, canes, not sure on their feet, hearing bad, vision bad, this bad, that bad, right? The feeble are going to be like David. And David killed Goliath. He was a great warrior. He killed the bear and a lion. So something's changing here. They're obviously not still feeble, because it would be inconsistent with them being feeble doing these things unless it was some sort of great miracle. Shall be as God, and the house of David shall be as Elohim, as the angel of the Lord before them. That was Michael, the warrior God of Israel. And he killed 150,000 in one day. So what's going on here? The two witnesses is what's going on here. Verse 9, and it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the heathen nations, or the heathens, that come against Jerusalem. They're all going to get it. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications. Wow. So now the ones in Jerusalem okay, so they're saved. He poured his spirit out on them. The house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And now look what happens next. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. Now that's Yeshua. They pierced him with the spear in the side, and the water and the blood came out. They have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem. Well, there was no great mourning, mourning, in Jerusalem when they killed Yeshua. They were pretty happy about it. It says that all the families of the tribes in Israel shall mourn when this happens, because of the way they blasphemed Yeshua and treated him, and and so forth. Treated his name more than they treated him. Okay. So what happens when they look upon Yeshua? They're believers. He poured his spirit out on them, and what happens? Well, your Bible tells you what happens. The church doesn't tell you, but your Bible does. It's very easy. Go to John 6:40, and this is what it says. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. But the everlasting life comes right there. Now that doesn't mean you can't be killed. It means your days are going to be very, very long. It says, my people's days will be like that of a tree. You probably were confused about that. A child shall die at 100. So before the flood, they lived 900-something years. They probably will live much longer than that. But all you have to do is make it into New Jerusalem, and then eat of the tree of life or drink of the water of life, and you'll have life without dying, because it says there's no death in New Jerusalem. So that's basically what happens. So this is where we first see the two witnesses working. Yeah, they'll work in Revelation 11, but that's at the end of the 70 years. That's probably 60-something years down the road. And they'll be active as the judges of Israel during this whole period of time. Now, you see, you get a look at this in 1 John 3:2. Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Okay, now, the next thing you need to understand is who are the two witnesses, and they don't teach you this either. And I'll leave it up to you as to why they don't teach you who they are. Zechariah 4, verse 1. And said skip verse 1. Zechariah 4, verse 1. And the angel that talked with me came again, and waked me as a man that is waked out of his sleep, and said unto me, What seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick. Now, that word for candlestick is menorah. They had such a candlestick, a menorah, in the temple. It had 7 things you could light, 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and 1 in the middle. And behold, the candlestick, all of gold, with a bowl upon the top of it, and his 7 lamps thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps, which are upon the top thereof, and 2 olive trees by it, one upon the right and the right side of the bowl and the other. So I answered and spake to him, the angel that talked with me, saying, What are these, my Lord? And the angel that talked with me answered and said unto me, Knowest thou not what these be? And I said, No, my Lord. Then he answered and spake unto me, saying, This is the word of the Lord unto Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith Jehovah of armies. Now, Zerubbabel and Zechariah were contemporaries. They came back from the Babylonian captivity, and Zerubbabel was trying to build the second temple, and he got interrupted for 14 years. So God's using Zerubbabel to show him that he will finish the temple. So I'll keep reading. Who art thou, O great mountain, before Zerubbabel? Thou, that's probably some big Roman power, I don't know, one of the countries back then. Thou shalt become a plain, and he shall bring forth the headstone thereof, shouting, saying, Grace, grace unto it. That's the headstone or the cornerstone for the temple. And it's a good idea to remember, not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, because that's how the true witnesses are going to be working. Moreover, the word of Jehovah came unto me, saying, The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands Okay. For who have despised the day of small things? Zerubbabel's temple was very small compared to the previous Solomon's temple. Some of them that were young when they went to Babylon for 70 years remembered Solomon's temple. Zerubbabel's was nothing at all. As glorious as that, not as large. It didn't have courtyards around it. It was rather small, but it was a bona fide legitimate temple, and if the priesthood operated correctly, it would bring the blessings of the law on Israel. The day of small things, for they shall rejoice and shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel. With those 7, they are the eyes of Jehovah, which runneth to and fro through the whole earth. Then answered I and said unto him, What are these 2 olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick and upon the left thereof? And I answered again and said unto him, What are these 2 olive branches, that which through the 2 golden pipes empty the golden oil out of themselves? The olive tree generates forth out of it olive oil, which is what was used for anointing oil, for praying for the sick or whatever, anointing the king, anointing the high priest. It was olive oil. So the olive oil represents the anointing. And he answered me and said, Knowest thou not what these be? And I said, No, my Lord. Now you got to pay very close attention, because the English translations, most of them get it wrong. They omit a word, and I'm going to explain to you what was omitted. Then said he, These are the 2 anointed ones. Now it doesn't say that. It says shnaim, which means 2. It says b'nai, which means sons. And then it says yitzar, which is the clarified oil, the olive oil. So what he's really saying here is two anointed sons. Yes, God has more than just Yeshua, the firstborn son. If Yeshua was the only son, why would he say firstborn? He would just say only son. Only begotten son is not only son. Only begotten son means the only one begotten this way from a woman in the Holy Spirit. That never happened again, never will. Then said he, these are the two anointed the two anointed sons that stand by the Lord of the whole earth. Now, let me give you a scripture before we get out of hand here, that God has more sons. Job 1 verse 6. Now, there was a day when the sons, plural, of God, Elohim, came to present themselves before Jehovah, and Satan came also among them. Okay. There are multiple sons of God. Okay? The two witnesses are. Now, Israel has decided in its ignorance unknowingly to pay homage to the two witnesses, who I don't think they know who they are, in their national symbol, which I'll show you a picture of, which is not the flag. The flag has an evil 6 star, which is a bad thing. This is the actual symbol of Israel, and you can see the 7 candlestick menorah and the 2 olive branches that you just read about. Now, they didn't know it when they did this, but that's what's going on. They're basically telling you, God has a sense of humor. God is telling you the two witnesses are going to run Israel. I rest my case. God is way more powerful than most people know. Let me see if we got questions. You want to call me iPad man? Go right ahead. I like iPads. Am I addicted to them? Do I put them in hypodermic needles and shoot them? No. No, Elijah went up to heaven. In 2 Kings, I think 17, we read about that. He went up in a whirlwind. The chariot of heaven came down, the company car, so to speak, if you want to be, cute. And a whirlwind came, and he went up in the whirlwind. See, Elijah had eternal life when he had everlasting life when he was here. He never died, so he could die again. You remember he outran a chariot. He went 40 days running without having to eat or rest or anything. He outran a chariot. Chariots had horses. They moved. They would go fast. He outran them. He killed with a sword 150 priests of Jezebel. Do you know how hard that is to kill 150 people with a sword? I would say a crackerjack samurai in the old days, right, could maybe dispatch 5 or 6 or 7, and that would be a lot of work. I mean, these 150 priests, do you think Elijah just said, now, fellas, you lost, we put your meat on the fire, and your God never came to light it, yet my God did, in spite of the fact that I poured water all over the place. Okay, he sent fire down from heaven, licked the water up, took the sacrifice. So you lose. So now, guys, what I want you to do is I want you to all kneel down in a straight line, lower your head, stand on your, support yourself with your knees and your arms, and I'm going to come by and cut your heads off. And that's the only fair thing to do. Don't make me chase you or fight you. Do you think they would have complied with that? I certainly don't think so. He knocked off 150 right away. I mean, and didn't take him a week. It took, I don't know, hour, 2, 3 hours. I don't know what it took. Does that remind you of Samson, who's also a judge and a prophet? It reminds me of Samson. Telling you like it is. He's hanging out, and let me find you the verse. All right, I got it in my notes, I think. Let me dig it up for you. I think we're in 1 Kings 19. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. He killed the prophets with the sword, 150. Do you understand that, the super samurai, Musashi, maybe, he could take out 3 or 4 guys or something like that. All right? This is Clark Kent level stuff. I mean, come on. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Clark Kent's not in the Bible, it's pure fiction, but you get the idea, I think. Then Jezebel, it would really be Jezebel, or I don't know what her name is, let me see. It's Atzbel. There's no J in the Hebrew alphabet. Sent Amalek a messenger unto Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. Well, that was a pretty serious threat. And when he saw that, he arose and went, we would say ran for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die. Let's check the word on that. Yeah, mute, die, kill, die. And said, it is enough now, O Jehovah, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers. Interesting. And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baken on the coals, and a cruse or a container, a pitcher or something of water at the head. And he did eat and drink and laid him down again. So here you go. Elijah's sitting there sleeping, and an angel wakes him up, says, "Hey, guy, here, eat and drink." He says, "Okay, cool." Eats and drinks, and then he lays down and goes back to sleep. Now, if an angel woke you up at night and gave you food and water, would you be able to sleep for what? Might take you 2 or 3 days to get back to sleep, right? Come on, think about it. This guy just goes right back to sleep. And the angel of the Lord came again the second time and touched him. So he goes right back to sleep. Apparently the angel's still there. He's not asking him questions. So he'll go back to sleep. The angel has to wake him up again. And said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee." And he arose and did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat. Now, the word for strength is koyak. It means energy, strength. 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the Mount of God. So he traveled for 40 days and 40 nights from that meal. Now, there was no such meal given to him when he killed 150 of Jezebel's sicko prophets. Don't get caught speeding here. And he came thither unto a cave, and lodged there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said unto him, "What doest thou here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been very jealous for Jehovah, Elohim." See, this is of hosts. This is a good thing. He got all depressed and bummed out because the people were turning away from Jehovah. They're not turned towards Jehovah. He wasn't all bummed out because he robbed a bank or, something like that, right? He didn't sin. He wasn't bummed out because he just committed a sin. He didn't sin. I mean, he did, but, did he really? I don't know. Okay. For the children of Israel, I don't really know if he did. For the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword, and I, even I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. He probably didn't know about the prophets that were in the school, the prophets that were hidden. And he said, "Go forth and stand up upon the mount before Jehovah. And behold, Jehovah passeth by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains, ripped at the mountains, and broke in pieces the rocks before Jehovah." That's quite a wind. Breaking rocks. But Jehovah was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. And the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but Jehovah was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. A still small voice. And this thing jumped chapters on me. Hold on. The still small voice. And it was so when Elijah heard it that he wrapped his face in his mantle. That would probably be the same mantle he threw down on the way up in the whirlwind to Elisha. And went out and stood in the entering in of the cave. And behold, there was a voice unto him and said, "What doest thou here, Elijah?" He said, "What are you doing here?" It was all gentle. he wasn't angry with Elijah. He was very gentle. Did Elijah goof up? Yeah, but he's God's son. God doesn't, you know, drop on his sons like that. He's in the flesh now. So he was scared because the flesh is weak. And he said, I have been very jealous for Jehovah Elohim of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thy breed, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And Jehovah said unto him, Go, return on thy way to the wilderness of Damascus. That's in Syria. King David ruled that Assyria once. And when thou comest, anoint Hazael to be king over Syria, and Jehu, the son of Nimshi, shalt thou anoint to be king over Israel, and Elisha, the son of Shaphat of Abimelech, shalt thou anoint to be prophet in thy room, in other words, with him. And it shall come to pass that him that escapeth the sword of Hazael shall Jehu slay, and him that escapeth from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha slay. Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which has not kissed him. So he departed thence, and found Elisha the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him. And with the 12th, and Elijah passed by him, and cast his mantle upon him. Now it was some mantle. And he puts the mantle on him, and look what happens. And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, Let me, I pray thee, kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow thee. And he knew what he was supposed to do. He put that mantle on him. Boom! He knew what's up, right? Go back again, for what have I done to thee? And he returned back from him, and took a yoke of oxen, and slew them, and boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen, and gave unto the people, and they did eat. Then he arose and went after Elijah, and ministered unto him. Just drops the mantle on him, and boom, off he goes. God doesn't trust this kind of power to other than his sons. It's too much. These two, when they come up from the dead after 3.5 days, they go up on a cloud to heaven. How did Yeshua go up after his resurrection on a cloud to heaven? What did Yeshua say? Only those that come down from heaven can go up to heaven, like he did. And the two witnesses go up just like he did. Exactly like rise from the dead and then go up on a cloud to heaven. Maybe Japheth and, no, it's Elijah and Apostle John. That's who it is. Somebody wrote Revelation 1:14 and 15. I don't have it by heart. We can look at it. his head and his hairs were white, the wool as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet were like, okay, that's just a vision of Yeshua, and that's sort of like what he's going to look like, I guess. Well, anyway, I don't know, but Yeshua's going to, you're going to see the glorified Yeshua. He's going to come down, seated on the right hand of power, which is God the Father, like lightning from the east to the west. I'll be right back. See, the Bible doesn't tell us much about Elijah. It tells us he was a Tishbite, which is the area he lives in. And you're not really, who's his mother, who's his father, who is his sister, his brother, where did he live, Who is his mother and father? I don't know. More about sisters and brothers. He didn't have any. I don't think he, I don't know. He may not have been born of a woman. He may have just been like Melchizedek. His days were outnumbered. I mean, Melchizedek was the son of God too. He apparently didn't have a mother or a father. He was so great, Abraham tithed to him. So maybe Elijah was born back then of a mother and a father. I don't know. But maybe he wasn't. He wasn't the regular, ordinary person. Let's put it that way. So you need to ask yourself why the church doesn't teach you about this. Obviously, they don't want it to happen. They don't want you to know about it. It's all right out of your Bible. They call them the two witnesses of the apocalypse, the two witnesses of the end. They were ministering in their power. They're going to be around for about 70 years. And people have everlasting life, the long life. So, arise, shine, your light has come, the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. Darkness shall cover the earth, gross darkness the people. That's Isaiah 61. Arise, shine. You'll be glowing. The word means emanating forth light or illumination, like Moses was who was also a son of God, I'm telling you stuff they don't teach you, who was on Mount Sinai with the glory of God of Israel. And he came down glowing, and they had to put a veil over him. And then remember the scripture, Israel gets saved when the veil gets lifted off. Think about it. The veil comes off, he's glowing. They see the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds like lightning from the east to the west. They are glowing. What about you believers in Yeshua, the true believers, and you're all over the world where this happens? What happens when you see him? You too will be glowing. And you will be incorporated into Israel, and you will come live in the land. And that's why all Israel shall be saved. And that's why you read Revelation 1:7. Behold, he cometh with the clouds like the lightning from the east to the west, seated on the right hand of God of power, God the Father. Why is he on God's right hand? Because Psalm 110:1 has to continue being fulfilled. The Lord said to my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. Yeshua's enemies are now his footstool. You'd have to be drunk to think that. Of course they're not. Not yet. Will be. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him. So that gets all you true believers will see him, and you'll have that everlasting life at the same time as Israel. And they shall all know him from the least to the greatest. They shall not go around saying, know the Lord. I will give them a heart of flesh. I will put the law in their inward parts. This is all going to happen to the Israelites. Lost tribes, not lost tribes. And every eye shall see him. And they also which pierced him. Doesn't that sound exactly like Zechariah 12:10? They shall look upon the one whom they have pierced. And they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, amen. Wail means, oh, oh, it's not party time, it's grief time, scare, fear, trembling. That's what your Bible teaches you. Search the Lord, search yourself why the church isn't teaching you this stuff. So I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife. Pray for our peace, safety, protection, and joy. Pray for our offerings to pick up. Pray for our finances. Pray for better videos. I could always get better, right? Pray for better videos. Why not, right? Pray for our health. Pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Please hit the like button, the thumbs up, and if you want to, I come on with live streams suddenly when the eggs start hitting the fan in the Middle East. If that interests you, hit the subscribe button. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I'm out, but I almost hit 3 hours. People are complaining about that, and I'm complaining to myself about that. That's long, but I had a lot to say. I guess I got a big mouth, huh? Okay, I'm out. Thank you. I hope you got something out of this.